This crazy offseason is starting to come to a close. We have the regular season, which is about 2 months away. Training camp is starting up in less than 2 weeks, and with that, obviously, comes the preseason. So I think we need a rankings list. The top 10 2022 offseason moves for the Pittsburgh Steelers. A caveat for this list is that it's a little bit more short-term and win-now focused, but it does still have the larger picture in mind. I think it'll make more sense as we go along. So without further ado, the top 10 2022 offseason moves for the Steelers. We'll go 10 to 1. At number 10, drafting the University of Pittsburgh quarterback Kenny Pickett. Obviously, he was the top quarterback on the Steelers board because he was the first quarterback taken when the Steelers selected him. But also, it's a win because it looked like the Steelers heading into the draft were going to draft a QB no matter what. We just didn't know when. Was it going to be the first round, second round, third round? So to get your top guy is definitely a plus right there. And also, there's reports that he was up to number 3 or number 4 on the Steelers' overall big board, and that they might have to trade up to get him as they saw Pickett falling in the draft. But they were still able just to stay put at 20, and then he fell to him there. Listen, I get it if you didn't want to select a quarterback in this draft because we already had Trubisky, and the thought was how much better is a rookie quarterback going to be than Trubisky or Mason Rudolph. But at the same time, a lot of the other prospects we were linking to the Steelers had went up to that point. Jordan Davis, all the really good receivers. So what was left was Devin Lloyd and Devontae Wyatt, which, whenever we're looking back, hindsight 2020, I mean, was Devin Lloyd actually really going to get a chance over Devin Bush, the dude that we traded up a couple drafts ago to number 10 to select? I feel like no matter what, given his talent, we were going to give him his last chance and every opportunity to earn it. And then also with Devontae Wyatt, it was up in the air with Tuitt coming back or not, but Devontae Wyatt would have been more of a luxury at that point, and especially now with us picking up Ogunjobi. So at the time, I thought, and I kind of still feel this way now, if you're the Steelers, you think a certain player is going to be your franchise quarterback, you take that player. A lot of us, including myself, thought it was going to be Malik Willis, but obviously it was Kenny Pickett. So you can't knock the Steelers for that. Worst case scenario, Pickett plays later rather than sooner, but at the same time, with this pick, it still legitimizes your quarterback competition for 2022. Whoever wins it earns it. Best case, Kenny Pickett is your franchise quarterback, and you're able to maneuver with a franchise quarterback on a rookie contract and build up the rest of the team around him for these next several years. And because of that, the Steelers drafting Kenny Pickett could obviously be higher on the list if you're thinking more long-term. Number 9, drafting University of Georgia wide receiver George Pickens. Talent-wise, he's probably a top 3 receiver from this draft class, and the Steelers were able to still select him in the second round. Has a chance to play a lot in his rookie season and could be the future franchise wide receiver 1. It also helps the organization, though, to not go too overboard and worrying about overpaying Deontay or Claypool when their contracts are coming up because you got a dude like Pickens in the wings. Number 8, the signing of defensive lineman Larry Ogunjobi. So at this point in the offseason, we are a couple weeks removed from Stephon Tuitt retiring. So the most common sense solution to that is sign a guy to replace him. But usually it's not that simple to just replace a Pro Bowl type caliber player with another Pro Bowl type caliber player. But in this case, the Steelers were able to pull it off. And if Ogunjobi is healthy, arguably he's better anyway than what Tuitt would have been coming back after that long layoff. His contract is reasonable as well. It's a 1-year deal, $6.45 million guaranteed, and at an $8 million cap hit. What's funny about this deal too is with Tuitt, his cap hit was a few more million than that. But whenever he retired, I think the Steelers were able to save about $9 million. So this is just the Steelers front office genius at work. We may have gotten a better player at the same position and saved $1 million on the cap. At this juncture of the offseason, the defensive end position was the only glaring hole on that defensive unit, and the signing of Ogunjobi shored that up. So I got him at 8. At number 7, signing former Buffalo Bills cornerback Levi Wallace. With us not re-signing Joe Hayden, we needed to make sure that we shored up the outside and get younger at the cornerback position. With the signing of Levi Wallace, we were able to do both. He was a solid starter up in Buffalo over these last several seasons, and he's in the prime of his career. The contract is perfectly good too. 2 years at $8 million. I think that's a really good value for the Steelers. And the reason I got him over a dude like Ogunjobi is I feel like the signing of Levi was a little bit more impactful, informative to this Steelers defense. My point is, if we would have never signed Ogunjobi after the Tuitt retirement, I feel like our defense would have been fine because we basically had every other position intact. Defensive line, we could have made it work with Liao, Wormley, or like Loudermilk. Still, we needed Ogunjobi, but I just feel like the defense still could have been top 5 without him. With Levi Wallace, you need that cornerback 2 or that outside cornerback position locked up. And with this signing of Levi Wallace, the Steelers were able to do that. At number 6, signing offensive guard James Daniels. And the reasoning for Daniels at this position is very similar as to why I have Levi Wallace at 7. It's because we were moving off of a veteran guard from last season in Trey Turner, and we needed to upgrade the offensive line as a whole and get younger as a unit. So we did exactly that with James Daniels. Reason I have him over Levi Wallace is because I just think he's better at his respective position than Levi Wallace is at his. At number 5, signing center Mason Cole. When we're talking offensive line, I do view James Daniels as the better player, but for the position in particular that we needed to upgrade, I think I'm going to view this one as more important because we couldn't run it back the same way at center like we did last year and then look ourselves in the mirror and say everything's all right, because it wasn't. Former Steelers quarterback Big Ben, Hall of Fame quarterback, seen a few things in the NFL, kind of knows what he's talking about. Even said it himself that he views Kendrick Green more as a guard than a center. So we really needed to figure out that center position this offseason, and with Mason Cole, we did just that. So in Mason, we should have our starter going forward, and like the rest of these signings, he's young, also should be in the prime of his career. Another caveat is the contract is decent, only $5 million per year. At number 4, re-signing cornerback Akello Weatherspoon. It's the same conversation that we just had with Levi Wallace. We needed to fortify our cornerback position, particularly on the outside. With the Akello signing, though, I think the Steelers got a guy who could legit be a cornerback 1 with his talent and potential. The only thing is he needs to replicate what he did in the latter half of last season and do it for a full season in 2022. The other benefit of this signing is that we can move Cam Sutton into the slot, into the inside. That's where he started off his NFL career, and I would assume is his more natural position. So with that combination of Akello, Cam Sutton in the slot, and Levi Wallace on the other outside, I feel really good about the cornerback position. And just like the rest of these other signings, I can't believe the contract. It was 2 years for $8 million. I thought Akello was going to get way more on the open market, but again, the Steelers just make good moves. At number 3, signing quarterback Mitchell Trubisky. We all know Ben wasn't coming back, #sabotage, so the only quarterbacks left on the roster were Mason Rudolph and Dwayne Haskins. Rest in peace. And as much as people have ripped on Trubisky for his stint in Chicago, I mean, low-key, he still had a 29-21 record as a starter, made a Pro Bowl, and I think as time has gone on, we could definitely attribute some of the blame for the offensive struggles to the coach, and also, I don't think Trubisky had that much talent around him whenever you look at the receivers and who he was throwing to. So there's that. But now Trubisky's coming off of that in-between year that he spent up in Buffalo, sitting behind Josh Allen, and now he's trying to revitalize his career and prove that he's still a starter, and the Steelers are giving him that opportunity. The contract's cheap, he's still young, the pedigree's still there, first-round talent, and we'll do the same thing that we did with Pickett. Worst-case scenario with Trubisky is he's just a stopgap quarterback, and Pickett ends up being the franchise guy. But best case, he lights it up and he proves to be more of the Buffalo version of himself, at least what we saw in the preseason, than what he was doing in the second half of his stint in Chicago. This signing was important too at the time because it brought something extra to the quarterback room. And obviously now we see that the Steelers value Mitch Trubisky higher than Mason Rudolph because he was getting all the quarterback 1 reps in OTAs and minicamp. Also, with how the contract's situated and stuff, we're able to get a guy who's got that talent, who's got the pedigree, on a very reasonable deal that enabled the Steelers to build up the rest of the team, and a bunch of the guys that they did sign are on this list. So yeah, I got the signing of Mitch Trubisky at number 3 on my list. At number 2, the signing of linebacker Myles Jack. Without the Steelers bringing in Myles Jack, we would be running it back with Devin Bush and who? Robert Spillane, Buddy Johnson, Ulysses Gilbert. Do we re-sign Joe Schobert? Hell, do we even spin the block on Avery Williamson again? Obviously, middle linebacker was a huge need this offseason based off last year's performance at the position. And bringing in Myles Jack at a reasonable $8 million per year will fix that problem in a big way. I also think Myles Jack being there will bring out the best in Devin Bush. So yeah, Myles Jack at 2. At number 1, the Minka Fitzpatrick extension. Why number 1? Because literally everything I've said on this list would be all for naught if Minkah Fitzpatrick was not on the field in 2022 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was the most critical piece we needed to address this offseason, just like TJ Watt last year. And from the looks of it, he signed at likely a hometown discount. Now, he still is the highest paid safety in the league, but that $18 million cap hit could have easily been around $20+ million depending on the time when this deal got done, because you still got guys like Derwin James and Jesse Bates that are looking to cash in. So if they would have signed before Minkah, that could have reset the market. Minkah's looking to be the highest paid safety in the league because he deserves to be so. That could have easily been in the $20+ million range. So kudos to Omar Khan for getting the deal done when he did. And also kudos to Minkah Fitzpatrick for recognizing the greatness in the Steelers organization and wanting to stay here. So it's a win-win for everyone. Minkah deal is number one on my list. And before I sign off, I'd be remiss if I didn't give my honorable mentions, the moves that just missed the cut. I'll start off. These are in no particular order. Gunnar Olszewski, signing him. Signing an all-pro return man never hurts. Next, we have DeMonte Casey. Nice safety, led the league in picks just a couple years ago, and provides really good versatility at the defensive back spot, whether he's playing safety or if he's going to do some slot corner. Next, Terrell Edmunds, great running mate with Minkah Fitzpatrick at the safety spot, and he's coming back at $2.5 million per year. I thought he was going to get around like 4 or 5 in the open market, and I think he's improved every year he's been with the Steelers, and I don't see that changing this year. And lastly, I got us drafting DeMarvin Leal and Calvin Austin III in the 3rd and 4th rounds. If I did have to rank between the two, I'd probably go DeMarvin Leal over Calvin Austin just because of the Tuitt situation lingering over us at the time, and DeMarvin Leal played defensive end and looked like he could fit that mold and replace Tuitt if needed. But that is it for my list. Let me know what you think of the top 10 honorable mentions. What would your guys' list be? Let me know down in the comments below. Hope you guys enjoy Big Deke News. Stay chillin'. Peace.